Guys, so here with another financial video for you. I'm going to be doing more of this type of video, at least for a while. I've got a lot of topics that I want to talk about. This one is actually my story about how I got in student loan debt. And basically, I'm going to take you from the beginning, why things happened, how they happened, how much debt I have, and what I've done as far as paying it off. So, to start out my story, I should say I grew up extremely poor, and my parents would not pay for college. I think they were kind of on the fence of whether they wanted me to go. I think on one hand they were forcing me to go to college because that's what you do after high school. On the other hand, they didn't, I just kind of got the sense that they didn't want me to go. And they also refused to pay. Now, anybody that's gone to college and gone through the financial aid process, you know that while you're 18 and you can't make your parents pay for college for you, the government believes that your parents should pay for college for you. Until you're 24, that FAFSA has to have your parents' information on it. So that was a real struggle for me because I don't really get along with my parents. A lot of times it was a struggle to get their tax information or whatever. Some years I couldn't get it at all and I didn't get any financial aid. So this is basically what happened to me. Back in 2004, so 11 years ago, is when I first got into student loan debt. But it wasn't really a big issue. It was a loan that was $1,900. I was working full-time, but at a retail job for just a little bit over minimum wage. I was in a really terrible housing situation. My parents weren't helping me out. And literally, it was a struggle every day to find food. I didn't have a car. I had to walk several miles to work and back. I didn't even have an operating kitchen. I didn't even have heat in my apartment. So I definitely was, as low as you can go in the poverty rate. And I took out this loan. I forget how the $1,900 figure came up, but it was a federal loan. And that was my only one I took out at that school. I believe this was my second year of college I did this. And it was just like magic. Like, this money, just all of a sudden more money than I could ever imagine having, $1,900, just, I suddenly had it, and I was able to buy food. I was able to eat at a restaurant. I was able to go see a movie. And it sounds like I squandered it. I didn't really. It didn't go to school because that was covered by scholarships, but it went to living expenses, rent, utilities, things like that. So that's where the first student loan came from. And $1,900, that's not a problem. So that one was 2004. Now in 2005, I transferred to the state university, which was about an hour and a half away or so. What happened there was really what got me in student loan debt. I was there for 2 years before I ended up transferring to another school. And in those 2 years is when I racked up almost all of my student loan debt. And my student loans currently are at about $279,000. That's, almost $300,000. I have more student loan debt than most people I know. Part of that is because I was in school for several years longer than most people. But also part of it is a lot to do with the issues that I'm about to discuss. Basically what happened was I had no concept of money. I had worked for a couple years full time, but there was a big difference between the amount of money I was able to earn at that job and the amount of money that I was able to procure through student loans. So when you're absolutely the poorest of the poor and you've never owned anything and you've never had money and your parents have never had money, then you don't know what to do with money when you get it. That doesn't mean I went out and I bought stupid expensive things. I did somewhat, but not with the majority of the money. But you don't know how far a dollar goes, and you don't know how hard it is to earn a dollar or to pay back a borrowed dollar. So I really don't blame myself for getting into the amount of debt that I'm in. I don't really blame other people either, but I forgive myself because I know I didn't know anybody. And give you an example. Basically, I'll tell you what happened. When I went to the state university, they basically completely screwed me over on financial aid. I don't remember exactly the circumstances, but I remember I had to turn in my paperwork to them 3 times. I was selected for verification of FAFSA, which meant that I had to provide a ton of documentation, above and beyond what you normally have to for the FAFSA. Well, the problem with that is my dad was furious at me for going to this school, and he wasn't speaking to me, so I had to basically make up with him and just so I could get his tax information. So I did that once, and I did it twice, because the first time I didn't hear back from the school at all. For months. And so finally, about a couple weeks before school started, I was like, hey, you guys going to send me an award letter for financial aid? And they're like, oh, well, you never turned anything in. I was like, yeah, I did. And they're like, well, you need to turn it in again. So I got it again. It was kind of a rushed process at that point. I didn't know how I was going to pay for school at all. And they basically, I went up there and I checked and I said, hey, I need to know when this is being processed. And they're like, oh, we're so sorry. They brought out all the papers. They're like, oh, I do see that you have it in your file here. I don't know why it wasn't processed. They're like, we're going to process it for you tomorrow. Literally, I called the next day, and they claimed they couldn't find any of the papers. And I was like, you guys literally, you had them. I saw them yesterday. They were in my file. Apparently the papers disappeared overnight. Come to find out a few years later, once the student debt crisis bubble burst, bad grammar. But when that happened, that university got busted for people in the financial aid office taking bribes from private student loan companies in order to get students to sign up for loans. Now, I don't know that that's exactly what happened in my situation. I don't remember whether or not it was the university financial aid office that asked me if I wanted to sign up for a loan. I don't know. But I do know that I got $2,000 in financial aid that year. That's nothing at all. It was kind of a sorry we fucked up kind of thing. Looking back on it, I probably shouldn't have gone to school that year. It was too late to go anywhere else, but I probably shouldn't have. But I didn't know that. I found out about student loans. I didn't know the difference between private and federal loans. I think I probably took out a federal loan through them, but I don't remember. But I did find out about private loans. Now here's the thing. It's pretty hard to get a private student loan nowadays, but it didn't used to be. They used to give them to anybody with no collateral, sometimes with no cosigner, and it was for any amount you wanted. I don't even know how I came up with the amounts that I got. Some of my loans were 19,000, some of them were 30-some thousand, some of them were 40-some thousand. I really have no idea where those amounts came from. But I remember, there were these companies. There was Sally Mae, My Rich Uncle. There was something called Terry, which I think is now AES. But there was a whole bunch of them. And, it was just so easy to get. And they would give them to anyone. Well, a few years later, they cut back on that. I know My Rich Uncle went out of business. It's nowhere near as bad as it is, but the damage was done. So here I am, 20 years old, $30,000, $40,000 in debt with student loans, but I'm in school, right? So it doesn't matter, right? In-school deferment. Here's one of the big lies about student loans. When you go into financial aid office and when you talk to the loan companies, they tell you, you can defer as long as you're in school. Bullshit. You can defer for 5 years. Now, people get really angry and defensive about this. Pretty much anybody I talk to about this topic does. You cannot defer indefinitely. It is a 5-year limit for in-school deferment. That's it. Then you get a 6-month grace period. That's it. Alright? I'm probably the most experienced person about this. I stayed in school for 9 total years. The last few years I was going part-time while working full-time to finish up. But 9 whole school years I was in college. Okay? I paid a lot of money. I got a lot of student loans. And I know that you have to do this because through all 3 of my student loan companies, I ran out of in-school deferment time. And I had to start paying while I was in school, which is why I had to start working, which is why it took me longer to graduate. So, that's rule number 1. You have 5 years of in-school deferment. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. So the next thing that happened was I got a $30,000 or $40,000 loan, and I pretty much just blew through it. I couldn't get a job in my college town. I had a 1-bedroom apartment. Of course, college towns are expensive. It was $588 a month. Back then, that was expensive. We're thinking 10 years ago. $588 a month, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but think about a year at $588 a month. Well, that's $6,000-$7,000, and I was paying for all my food and student loans, gas, clothes, my tuition, obviously, books, anything. I couldn't find a job. It was a small town, middle of nowhere. So I had student loan money. I lived off the student loan money, which is one of the approved things. It says use it for living expenses. For educational expenses, living expenses is included in that. But the problem is that when you've never had money, no one in your family's ever had money, you don't understand how to budget, because if you've never had money, you can't budget because you don't have any money to start with. So these were skills that I developed over time that I have now, but at the time, there's no way I could have known. Did I waste a lot of money? Yeah, I did. Probably not in the way that you're thinking, not partying or anything like that, but just driving my car around in the middle of the night because I was bored, wasting gas, stuff like that, that I would never do now. But I will tell you one thing. Probably the biggest place that all this money went is that I pretty much owned the clothes on my back, and that was it. And where I spent most of my money was buying stuff. Now, most of you are probably thinking, you don't have to buy that much when you're in college. But You do, because if you've never owned anything in your life, first of all, my college required a laptop. Kind of an expensive purchase, so I bought a laptop. Also, I didn't have any furniture in my whole house. I had to buy a bed, right? I had to buy some other stuff. Got a couch, got a chair. Nothing extravagant. I did buy a TV. This is way before flat screens. They weren't that expensive. I think it was like $200 or something. But the point is, when you don't have anything, and think about everything you have in your house. I mean, add the cost of all of that stuff up. It's thousands of dollars. And that's where a lot of the money went. So that was 2005, 2006 school year. 2006, 2007 school year went the same way. I probably went through somewhere between $120,000 and $150,000. To be honest, I can't account for that money. I don't know where it went to. I just don't. I mean, food, gas, clothes, rent, utilities. It adds up fast, but it still shouldn't add up to that amount. And I really don't have much to show for it. I transferred from that university after 2 years, not related to student aid, but I transferred. And I transferred to a really expensive private school. And that sounds like a stupid decision, but you have to understand that this school the school I was at 2 years in a row screwed me over on financial aid, and I didn't get any. The small school promised me that I was basically going to be paid to go there. Well, turns out they screwed me over too, and out of all the scholarships they gave me, they'd only let me have 2 of them. So now I'm going to a $57,000 a year school with only, I think, $8,500 in scholarships. So I still didn't give up. I was stubborn, and that's where the problem came in. I got one loan at this school. That loan, I don't know, it was like $30,000, something like that. Had to pay tuition, food, room and board. But by spring of 2008, that money was mostly gone. And I was getting real afraid of money. I stayed in school. I found a way to make it happen. But I had a few years there where I was really struggling. I mean, talking about living in $200 a month boarding houses, being homeless on occasion, bumming food from friends coming out of the dining hall. That surely didn't have a good impact on my academics. But I survived. I made it through. I graduated college in August of 2012. Now, when I graduated college, first of all, the school screwed me over. For whatever reason, they put my graduation date or my separation date from the institution as May of 2012, even though it was August. So I had to start paying loans back sooner than I would have because my 6-month grace period started. And I graduated in 2012 in the recession. I couldn't get a job right off. When I did get a job, it was okay. I mean, if I lived with my parents, I probably would have felt like I was rich working this job. It paid okay. But I wasn't. I was completely independent. Still, parents wouldn't help with anything. So I was pretty much broke. Moved up to a $350 a month, room for rent. And here's the thing about student loans. $279,000 in. I just can't pay it. I have almost $1,000 per month in payments. That's not including the 2 loans that are federal loans that are in deferment. I have one federal loan that I am current on. I've defaulted on 2 loans, one for $19,000, one for $48,000, and I have 4 loans that are 5 payments behind. I've got a better job now. I make, pretty damn decent money, the most I've ever made. A lot more than any of my friends I know. But I can't make the payments. And more than that, I can't make up the past due balance, even if I could make the payments. I can't pay $1,000 a month. And that leads me to, debt collection practices. I'll try to make this short because it's getting almost 21 minutes now. Debt collection practices have been absolutely horrible. Unfortunately, since I've sent debt validation letters and things to my creditors, they won't even talk to me. They go after my cosigner because my mom's my cosigner, and she just lets people push her around, and she pays to whoever bothers her the most, basically, which is like the worst possible thing you can do. But that's what she does, and no amount of me trying to tell her otherwise helps. So, I don't expect my mom to pay my loans. I fully intend to pay them. But my challenge right now is that my mom, my mom, she wants to pay the ones I defaulted on to the bill collectors rather than pay on the ones that are current. And I do not understand that at all. But, not the ones that are current, but the ones that have not defaulted. I would rather her pay on those to get them current. Anyway, she makes a payment here or there. I'm putting about $600 a month away toward loans, not including the loan that's current. And the problem I'm having is every month, I put $650 away every month. And every month, I get farther behind because that doesn't cover the payments. And now I'm 5 payments behind. And what it's doing is it's just slowing the inevitable that I'm going to default on all of my loans, except for the one. The one small loan is that original $1,900 loan. It's almost paid off. It's like $853 now. I just paid off my tuition today, 2 years later, but hey, I got it paid off, right? So what I was paying there is now going to go toward this, and it'll get that loan paid off a lot quicker. It's probably going to be like December of this year it's paid off. So, good. Got that. First student loan paid off, and that's $51.73 per month I can put toward these other loans. But they're not going to wait that long. By the time December rolls around this year, I will have defaulted on the loans. So, I'm at a point right now where I have a big decision to make. I need to make a decision that makes the most financial sense. Do I continue to pay on all of my loans every month and continue to watch them slowly get more and more past due? And I have tried to talk to them about lowering payments and stuff. They always send me these letters saying, we have these wonderful opportunities, we'll forgive part of your debt amount, we'll lower your interest rate. They won't do any of that. Because before they do any of that, you have to pay off the past due balance, which I can't do. So, my only option really is default. And that's not a good option, but there's nothing I can do about it. So my plan is now, I'm going to continue paying off the one that's current, the small federal loan. My other 2 federal loans are in deferment. I got to start paying on them in August. Maybe I can get a little bit more deferment out of them, I'm not sure. But as far as the other loans, I think I've decided what I'm going to do. I'm going to start allocating specifically to the one that's $19,000, the small loan. It's less than half what the others are. And as I pay off the small loan, more and more payments are going to be snowballed into that one. Because I can either default on all of them, all 4 of them, because I can, or I can default on 3 and get the past due caught up and then keep current on a second loan. It sounds like a terrible decision, but I say defaulting on 3 is better than defaulting on 4, right? So that's where I'm at right now. This is a really depressing video. I'll probably never get all my loans paid off, but I am an honest guy. I know I took out the loans, and I'm not trying to get out of paying them. I'm just trying to find a means to pay them. And I think that's important, that you pay what you took out, what you signed up for. It's like keeping a promise. So, if any of you had any experience in this, leave me some comments, how much loan debt you have, how you got out of it, especially if you're deep in debt like me. And also if you defaulted. I have not really had much follow-up on those 2 loans I defaulted on, and it's been about a month or a year and a half. Basically, they're supposed to take everything you own, which I own 2 cars that don't run, so good luck with that. But they're supposed to take everything you own, take your co-signer's house, and all this other stuff. And I haven't even had any contact with them. No phone calls, no letters, no threats of court. They've not tried to sue me. No wage garnishment. I don't know. So, if you guys have had any experience with default, tell me what they did. How long did it take them to garnish your wages or whatever they ended up doing? Go ahead and subscribe. I will, as I get some of these loans paid off, and depending on what happens, I'll go ahead and post new videos. I am slowly making progress in my finances, and I think I'll post some videos for inspiration and also instructional things, because I do think that despite my debt, I'm good at managing money now. Unfortunately, that's something that I had to learn by being poor and then getting money and then being without money again. But that second time of being without money after having it is really what I needed in order to get good with money and good at managing it. So I actually have been tracking my finances really since 2010. So a couple years after my last loan money ran out, I've been using a ton of different products, but yeah, I track it down to the penny. I have for 5 years now, and I can see the progress in the graph that things are getting better. So I just got to believe that once I get the loans out of the way, I'll be fine. The only other debt I have is $1,300 in credit card debt. I mean, I do have a pretty high income. That's, I can pay that off with one paycheck. So that's fine. But as for now, big changes are going to be coming with the student loans, especially if I default on all of them. So otherwise, guys, I'm going to stop complaining about the student loans. I realize this is a depressing video, and I'll try to be more upbeat in the future about paying these off. But go ahead and leave me a comment or send me a message on here if you have anything going on. Also, I would suggest that if you are looking to get into paying off your loans, look at Reddit. Just look for, it's r/student loans or r/personal finance. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, read through there, and you're really going to find some stuff that's going to help you. Even if you don't know anything of what I'm talking about in personal finance, read through the personal finance Reddit, and you'll learn a lot just by reading the posts. So, alright guys, I got to get to bed because I got to work tomorrow. Good night, and make sure to subscribe. I've got a lot more videos of this topic coming out, and hopefully I can help you get out of debt as well.